Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our introduction to team coaching. My goal in this hour, this session is 1 hour, is to share with you what is the International Coach Federation definition of team coaching, what is team coaching and how it works. And the idea is that by the end of the session, you all get a sense of the basics or foundations from ICF of what is team coaching, how it works, what are the key components of team coaching. And this is an introduction. In particular, we're doing the program too because we are starting next week a coaching team coaching certification program. So I can also, at the last part of the program, I can share a little bit with you about that program and what are the key elements. I know some of you are interested in learning more about team coaching and about the certification. So in the last 10 minutes, I'm going to be talking briefly about the certification and the element of the certification. So let's start by the beginning, defining what is team coaching. And what is interesting is this year, ICF is offering the first team coaching accreditation with a credential. And in the new competency model that I'm going to share today with you, there are 8 competencies, like the 8 competencies many of you know from ICF, but they are applied to team coaching. So how these 8 competencies show up for coaches when they're working with teams. And it is different working with teams than working one-on-one with individuals. So we're going to be covering that. But the first question is, what is team coaching? And what is the difference between team coaching and team building, team facilitation, training? So I would like to do a very interactive 3-minute discussion. So I'm going to send you very briefly to small groups. And I want you in your breakouts for 3 minutes, just short time periods of time, share what do you think, how would you define team coaching? And what do you think is the difference between team coaching, team building, and facilitation? Let's focus on these 3 different practices: team coaching, team building, and facilitation. And let's spend 3 minutes on it, like very brief. So let's be back in 3 minutes.
And a goal and an outcome, and coaching a team that has a specific goal and required outcome. Whereas facilitation is more about allowing the team to kind of discuss among themselves, and the facilitator is there to keep the whole thing together and keep time management and everything. And then team building is more about kind of relationship skills and how they communicate with each other and respect each other and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. That's one way to look at it. Anybody else would like to share? What is the difference between team coaching, team building, and facilitation?
Can I go?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. I think team building is about creating the spirit and the dynamics so that the team puts the individual puts team ahead of their interest. That is the objective. The objective is create an environment where people come together and work towards the common purpose. Okay, so it's not about goals; it's about the common purpose. Okay. My understanding of team building, and team coaching definitely is to bring people together to achieve specifically the organizational goals and organizational expectations. Facilitation, while team coaching is a little more active process with higher response, I think responsibility may not be the right word, but I think it's a little more active process by a coach. Then facilitation. Facilitation, you are there, you create an impact, still you are not there. And you have all the patience to allow the team to take its own time and come up with what they want to achieve. You just don't own anything. You just are there subtly prompting the team dynamics. So these are my understanding. And
great. I think that this is exactly where we want to go. So thank you very much to the 2 colleagues who share some of what you share in your group. Let me share some formal definitions that you will see are pretty aligned to what you're sharing. So the idea is that team coaching for ICF, and if you look at the definition, is similar to the one on individual coaching, but applied to teams. ICF defines team coaching as partnering in a co-creative and reflective process. Okay, so first, this is partnering again. So the emphasis is in the collaboration between the team coach and the team. So we are partnering, we are co-creating, we have a process where the team is reflecting in its dynamics and relationships in a way that inspires them to maximize their abilities and potential in order to reach their common purpose and share goals. So as you can see in this definition of team coaching, what we're talking is about the coach helping the team, supporting the team in a partnership, in a co-creative space. Again, ICF philosophy is about co-creating and partnering. Then supporting the team in maximizing the potential, similar to the definition that ICF used for coaching, for individual coaching. But here the focus is on reaching that common purpose and shared goals. So the idea is that how the team is supported by the coach to accomplish goals and results, as both of you said. Now, there are different definitions in the field about team coaching that are not necessarily from ICF or other associations. EMCC, European Mentor Coaching Council, also has a credential on team coaching. But I do believe that the systemic team approach is very effective, and this is what I approach. This is the work that I work with, the systemic perspective. We work with the whole team, and the aim is to improve their collaboration, performance, engagement, collective learning, and the value they co-create for all stakeholders. So it's not only about the team in itself and what the team needs to accomplish, but also looking at the systems that they are part of, looking how they provide value to themselves and to the different stakeholders. So it has a systemic perspective. Now, if we look at the differences between different activities, ICF, and this is a document from ICF where it differentiates team coaching from team building, team training, team consulting, mentoring, and facilitation. And today we can spend all session talking about this, but I want to just for you to get a sense of a couple of key elements of the differences. The idea in team building is to support the team for people to get to know each other and for people to get to work effectively. And sometimes team building is necessary before team coaching. So you cannot help and support and work with a team to accomplish results if there is not any element already in place. If people don't know each other or don't trust each other. So team building is about, how the word said, building a team. And usually in team building is more, as you can see here, is something that is not ongoing. Many times team buildings are retreats where people get together and there is a team building consultant, facilitator, trainer that support the team to build trust, relationship, ground rules to work together. The difference with team coaching that is an ongoing process. Like individual coaching, team coaching, support the team on an ongoing basis to produce results. So this is one of the key differences. Now, facilitation is, as somebody was saying before, is supporting the team to accomplish results during meetings. And usually facilitation is about process. It's how you support a team or a group by inviting everybody to participate. So for example, one of the goals of the team facilitator is that there is a goal that needs to be accomplished, and the facilitator support the team to accomplish this goal by setting up norms for the conversation, being sure that everybody participates, discussing some conflicts, something that can be underlined. So the idea is that when we are doing team coaching, we are also facilitating. So facilitation and team coaching can be overlapping and different than individual coaching. In team coaching, the role of the coach is more directive. So the level of direction and the level of involvement of the team coach is higher working with teams than with individuals. So that will be another key difference, that at the level of intervention, of participation, even though we are still co-creating, many times the team coach is who decided what they're going to be doing next. Sometimes the agenda is developed together between the team coach and the leader. So here is another key element. When you're working with teams, different than when you're working with individuals, you're not only working with the team, but also you're working with the leader of the team and other stakeholders. So many times companies hire a coach, and by the way, this is a trend in companies. Companies, as before they didn't know what was coaching, for people who have been in the field, I know some of you who are here are new coaches, and some of you have been here for a while. For the people who have been here doing this for a while, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, people didn't know what was coaching in organizations. And we really needed to do a hard work in trying to explain to HR and to leaders what was coaching and how it works, so they would hire coaches. Now we don't need to do that any longer. Now companies know what is coaching. Do you agree with me? Most of the time, we don't need to explain a lot about what is coaching. Most of the time right now, companies, after a few years, know what is coaching and how it works, but team coaching is new for them. And they are seeing the value of the investment on team coaching. And they realize that many times can be a better investment to get a team coach to work with a team and to be sure that the team is successful than only working with the leader. So companies are starting to invest resources, not only on individual coaching for the leaders, but they are seeing the value, and the trend is there are more and more companies and organizations investing in their teams, working with a team coach to support them for them to be successful. That's the reason why MCC came up with an accreditation a couple of years ago. ICF came up with an accreditation this year, just to be sure that there are some guidelines. And interestingly, I think that team coaching is much more complex than individual coaching. And I found it more interesting too, because there are so many variables to look at, that ICF recommends that we work with a co-team coach, because 4 eyes, 4 ears can be more effective than just 2. So having 2 people working with a team can get better results if it is just 1 person. So you add the complexity of working with a colleague, but the team get the benefit of working with 2 people. And also there is a possibility of conflict between the team coaches. That sometimes that's happened too, when there are differences. And so that's another variable. But when you're working with a team as a coach, you need to also build a relationship with the leader and another stakeholders. There'll be a possibility that human resources or somebody in the company hire a team coach, and maybe the leader is not completely convinced of having the team coach working with his or her team. So you need to deal with that variable. Or the team leader really wants to work with a team coach, and the team is not really open and not trusting the intentions of the leader or the team coach. So it's challenging for the team coach having to build that relationship with the team. Now, in the process of team coaching, like in individual coaching, we want to have the contracting, the development of the relationship, and also at the end, the closing of the process. So we have these 3 stages: the introduction, contracting, doing the work, and closing, and that happens for the whole process and for each session. So each session that you're doing team coaching, you're also looking at contracting, agreeing what you're going to be working on, exploring issues, getting people to work together, and at the end, doing a summary and defining next actions for the team. What is the team going to be doing? So next session, you can follow up. Now, in terms of team coaching, can be done in 2 different ways. Can be done by observing and providing input, feedback, comment when the team is working. That's one of the activities that team coaches are doing. But the other possibility is to use the team coaching as a reflective space for the team to reflect on its work. So what does it mean? It's like, instead of the team working as they work and the team coach observing and providing input and feedback and making comments on what's happening with the process and how may be effective and what may not be effective for the team, what they're doing. In this other way of working, the team stop doing what they're doing and they meet with the team coaches to reflect on their work, to look, okay, this is what we're doing well as the team, and this is what is missing. This is what are our strengths, and this is what we need to work on. We want to leverage our strengths, but we also want to work what is not working. Any questions so far? Yes, Christopher.
Yeah, I had a question about the contracting element with the team. I could imagine that I like with individual coaching, doing that contracting and working with one person as they kind of like figure out and identify what they really want to work on. Sometimes it takes a little time to help them clarify. But in a team setting, would they come like beforehand with I don't know, the team leader saying, hey, this is what we want to work on, kind of thing, like have something more defined?
That's a great question. That's a great question. A couple of things. First, ideally, if you're going to work with a team, you want to interview all members. So you want to have one-on-one meetings with each person. So you build trust and a relationship one-on-one with each of the persons of the team. And in that way, you get a sense of where they are and what are their perspectives about what are strengths and what are areas where they can be more effective. So you start asking this question. There are many different instruments that may be used. I am going to share briefly one of the instruments that I use is from Peter Hawkins, based on the 5 disciplines of a team, based on his model. David Clutterbuck also have a model with the 5 pillars of team coaching. So there are different instruments that can be used, so you can get a sense of where the team is. You bring the results of the assessment, and with the team, you decide to all together what are going to be the agenda for the team coaching sessions. What are going to be the goals and what will be the agenda. So you define that together. So you contract with the team how you're going to be doing that. And there are many different ways. Sometimes you may contract with the team leader. So you may contract with the team that you will meet with the leader, and together you're going to define the agenda for the session. And also you need to contract with the leader how you're going to co-facilitate, who is going to be facilitating. So in this case, I want to clarify facilitation is part of the work of the team coach. Sometimes the team coach may be facilitating, sometimes the team coach may be observing, sometimes the team coach may be doing an exercise with the team that will be appropriate. All needs to be discussed and contracted at the beginning. So that's a different ways to do this. So there is not one way, there are many different ways, but you will be familiar with different assessment tools and you will choose the one that you like the best to work with teams. Or you can do different assessment tools based on the team. So each team is different. So you may get to know the team, and based on the team, you may decide, okay, how I am going to be doing the assessment. It's like you may do a 360 for a leader. With a team, you want to find something that will work to collect data to figure out what is the best strategy for this team and how you may be able to support the team. One more question before we continue.
I have a question, Damian.
Yes.
When it comes to team coaching, we say we're coaching as a team, as an entity, or as a whole. As you say that the team leader and the team itself may have its own agenda or focus. So then what is the team? I understand we may have the contracting, but sometimes that would that be the construct maybe a challenge and maybe an opportunity. What do you think?
Yeah, yes, you also have this challenge. These are all going to be challenges, okay, and opportunities. And what is important is that you have these conversations at the beginning of contracting. So you agree about how you're going to work with the team. Now, we work with the team as an entity. So your client is the team. And at the same time, as part of the team, there is a leader. There are other stakeholders that may be engaged and involved in the work you are doing. So you need to have a strategy where you engage as many people as possible in using transparency, respecting confidentiality, and clarifying how you're going to be working together. So you need to keep in mind all of the things. So let me share the 8 competencies. What are the 8 competencies of team coaching? And this is about contracting. So I'm going to go through them, and then we can see what questions do you have. And you may start, when you listen to this, you may start asking the questions in the chat room, and then I'm going to collect the data and all with the questions, and I will answer them. And also you can think of examples or questions you may have when I share briefly what are these 8 competencies. So the first one, as you know, is demonstrating ethical practice. So in team coaching, here, Cynthia, what you were asking, we treat the team as a single entity. So the idea is that your client is the team. And you need to be careful, like if you're going to be, after you interview everybody, if you are going to be talking or having conversations with people outside the team, how you clarify that and how going to be your position. So ideally, you don't want to have parallel conversations and collect data from individuals during the process. So you want it to be clear how you're going to be doing that if any parts of the team want to work with you one-on-one. So here, the other piece is maintaining the distinction what we're starting covering today between team coaching, team building, team training, team consulting, team mentoring, facilitation, and other developmental modalities. So all of these categories follow under team development. It's like when in coaching, when we differentiate coaching from consulting, from training, from mentoring, again, ICF wants team coaches to be able to distinguish the different activities and decide what is the most appropriate. There is nothing wrong with doing team building, nothing wrong doing only facilitation, but you need to decide and you need to be clear what modality you are using. And sometimes team training is appropriate. Sometimes you need to have conversations with the team about what makes a team effective. Or even what is a team, because this is another conversation. Not all groups are teams. So for example, people working together, they are part of an organization and they work together and everyone is responsible of the process of a team or an activity, but they don't need to collaborate necessarily to be effective. A key element of teams, different than groups, is that teams require that people collaborate and support each other to accomplish results. So because of that, many times teams are called teams, but they are not really teams. They are just groups. They are people that they are in the same space, they work from the same organization, but they don't depend on each other to produce results. Now, this is not black and white, because sometimes you can also see that can be professors in the university. Every professor is teaching its own program, its own classes, don't need the other teachers at the end of the day to do their job, but all together are working on developing the students. So even though they are not collaborating, the work that everyone is doing will impact at the end of the program, the results for the student graduating from the program. So the idea is still, even though they don't need each other, they need to be embracing some of the same philosophies or some of the same spirit. So in that way, you may need them to learn about what people are doing. So even though they will not support actively each other, still they need to do some work in being aware and in some way engage in the same spirit, in the same overall goal. So from that perspective, even though there is no collaboration, some people may say, okay, they are still a team. Some people may say, no, they are not a team, they're just a group. You can still do some work, you can still support them, but they are not really a team. Other related to ethical practice, so here is about defining what is a team and a group. Demonstrating knowledge and skill to practice is blend of different activities and modalities when they are needed. Being more directive, as I was telling you before, based on the needs of the team. And in terms of values, maintain trust, transparency, and clarity when fulfilling multiple roles related to team coaching. Because of the complexity of this team, transparency and having conversations and being clear about what you are doing is going to be key. In terms of maintaining agreements, again, there is always relationship between agreements and ethical issues. So here is about how the team coach understands what is team coaching and differently with other modalities. So there is a relationship between maintaining agreement and ethical issues. Maintaining agreements, establishing and maintaining agreement is also about partnering. It's also about clarifying how people are going to be working together, how they're going to be working with a team leader, with member, with stakeholders, with coaches. So we were talking before about the complexity of all of these relationships. And also partnering particularly with a team leader in terms of who is going to be owning different parts of the process. So here we want to be sure that we overdo establishing and maintaining agreements, because if this is not well done, eventually sooner or later there are going to be conflicts and problems. The idea that you really spend a lot of time contracting, clarifying roles and responsibilities. The third one is about trust and safety. And this is a key element because many times we cannot do the work on team coaching if there is no trust, if the team is not built basics to work together. So the idea is that one part of the assessment is to see if the team is ready. There is a possibility that the team is not ready for coaching, that the team needs team building, or they need a consultant to work with the team to help to solve conflict. And so here is where you want to be sure that you do the right assessment to define the readiness of the team. And then you want to maintain a safe space. You want to be sure that you develop some ground rules, how you're going to working together, that you promote seeing the team as a single unity, that you support everybody expressing their feelings, perceptions, concerns, hopes, and suggestions. And here is where there is an overlap with facilitation. You want to be sure that everybody participates. And you want to partner with the team to develop and maintain the rules that I was saying before, promoting effective communication, and partnering with the team to identify and resolve internal conflict. So here is something that is different in team coaching, is that managing team conflict. In terms of presence, and of course, when we go through this in the team coaching certification program, we spend one session for each of the competencies. Here's like a brief description so you get a sense of what are the competencies and what are the key elements. So here about maintaining presence is about paying a lot of attention to the multiple things going on at the team at the same time. So this can be very interesting. It's like, okay, what is everything that is happening between the person who is speaking, the subgroups in the team, and that's the reason why using a co-coach is recommended. So two people can be more present to what's going on that one. And also encouraging people to stop and reflect on what's happening during the team coaching sessions and between sessions, and move in and out of dialogue as appropriate. And this is an art. Like we talk that coaching is an art and a science. As a team coach, it's also an art knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to intervene and when to don't share anything and wait for the right time to make a comment on an observation. About listening actively, basically listening for what people are saying, what people are not saying, energy, what's happening verbal and non-verbal, looking at potential alliances between the different team members, modeling effective communication and listening, encouraging people to share their ideas. And invoking awareness is about supporting the team to build insight, to develop insights about, okay, what's going on here and what do we need to be more effective? What is in our way? What are our assumptions? What are our interpretations? And use here questions and other techniques. So you foster the team developing internal the dialogue and new insights. Working awareness about what the team may not know, what they need to see that they are not paying attention to, that make them more effective as a team. And then facilitating client growth is about encouraging dialogue and reflection. So there are clear goals and action plans and activities and commitment of what people are going to be doing. So these are some of the key elements of team coaching, what the team coaching is doing. So let's see, any questions about these competencies? I see you can raise your hand, or you can share the questions in the chat. Yes, Aaron, go ahead.
Is there an ideal number of participants on a team? So coaching a team of 10 versus 20 versus more?
Yeah, the idea is that when you work with a big team, it's much more difficult to do this work. So you may not be doing team coaching really, you're working with 20 or 30 people. Usually to be able to do this work, you need around no more than 10. So the idea is that ideal teams have between 7 and 12 people the most. the more people are in the team, the more difficult and challenging is the team to be effective. So, for example, I was in a team at the Global Board of Directors for ICF, and we were in the team 16 board members. It took forever to make any decision. It took me forever to get to know the people to start with, and it was very intimidating for me when I just got into that team. And then when I was in the board, halfway we decided to cut the team from 16 to 8. So we went to half of that team, and the team, when we did that, the team was much, much more effective. So the idea is that for teams to be able to interact and to get engagement and people involved and being everyone to be really having a voice. Ideal numbers are between 7 and 12 the most. But you may not be able to choose that. Maybe the team is already a big team, and you may say, well, we may do some team building activity more than team coaching. Or we may have some meetings to reflect on the work we're doing. But the most people you have in the team, the most difficult is to do the work and to get results. But sometimes there are leaders who have maybe 20 or 30 people under them, and they consider them their team. Julia?
Thanks, Damian. So my question is about virtual versus in person. We're finding both in terms of delivering services in person versus virtual, and in terms of the impact on having gone virtual and coming back to in person on organizations and teams. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that at all.
Yeah, that's a great question, because this is one of the challenges of these days, isn't it? It's what we call post-COVID leadership and post-COVID work. And it's not to post, because we are still in the middle of it. Like I was this weekend, I live in Los Angeles, and I was in Milwaukee, and the city came up with new policies about people going to restaurants and not being more than 6 people at the table because they have a lot of new cases. So we are not done yet, but we are seeing the consequences of COVID and how this is affecting us and our work. So when we have been working at home by ourselves and we need to go back to work in person with other colleagues, sometimes it can be challenging to readjust. So people are readjusting to that. And sometimes people are happier, but some people are not. So we have a mix of experiences. And there are people, when they didn't have a choice, because during COVID-19, it was not a choice. You were at home, you didn't have a choice to work in person. So people need to develop resilience and skills to work at their homes, not in person, and still get results. And what happened was that teams were able to get results, even working virtually. Have you seen that in your clients, in the organization that you work? Even though people were working virtually, they still got results. So now people are wondering, should we really invest money, resources, flights, hotels for people to get together when they can still do their work from their homes? So people are adapting, Julia, to this. And I do believe, my experience is the idea is to have a hybrid where people meet in person just to build team, just to get together, just to build a relationship, just to create that spirit. And then people go and work by their own. And then they come back. So people are learning to go back and forth from working in person, from working virtually, with the idea that a team can still be successful working virtually. You don't need to be in person, but it's also going to depend on this industry and where you work. For some industries and some jobs, you need to be in person, but for the one that you don't need to as a requirement, people are finding that they can use a hybrid. And I do believe that hybrid is the future of work. It's going to be hybrid. And people are learning how to do that, how to be successful when they meet in person and when they meet virtually, and trying to take the advantage and focus on the strength on these two activities. What happens when we're in person? Let's take advantage. We're in person. When working virtually, let's be sure that we make this work effectively. So I think the future includes both. And I think that we as team coaches and coaches, we many times are going to be supporting teams and individuals to go through this process. So your question is a very appropriate question, because we need to know how to do that. We need to build skills to be effective and coaching leaders and teams so they can navigate this hybrid work effectively.
Thank you.
Do we have time for a couple of more questions? Yes, Wendy.
Just one question. In an executive coaching, sponsored executive coaching, there is a three-way relationship: the coach, the sponsor, and the coachee or a client. Okay, so in a team coaching, there is a sponsor, perhaps either HR or organization. There is a coach, then there is a team leader, and then the team members. So, how do you manage this challenge of converging the expectations?
Great question. Great question. So the idea, and interesting, the challenge is when they all have different expectations. That is the challenge. When you have to work with a team and the stakeholder, the HR calls you, I said, they want you to do some work with the team. The leader have a different idea and the team has a different idea. So then what do? Okay, you need to put all of the cards on the table and decide at the beginning what is going to be the agreement about what you're going to be doing. So you do that same thing when you're working on individual coaching, a leader that you are called and the HR person tells you one thing, your client tells you something else, and the leader says something else. So you bring everybody together and you say, okay, let's agree about what is going to be the plan. So you do the same in team coaching. You bring the stakeholders together and together you decide what will be the best approach. Wendy.
Yes. This year I've been coaching teams that have no leader. They're collaboratively led teams. And so the first question is, how does that fit into this framework and this model? Second question is that my experience is that coaching teams, especially teams where there's been high conflict at some point, it's a much heavier lift than doing one-on-one coaching. And what does that mean from the business perspective? Like, how many teams is it really realistic as an independent to be, to be coaching? And so there's something about what is a sustainable practice as a team coach. So those were my questions.
Great questions. The first one about leaderless teams, you need to work with the team as a unity. So because leadership rotates, probably you want to work with all of them together. And if there is going to be somebody from that team facilitating in the rotation, you may or may not have conversation one-on-one on what's happening in the next session. But you will just bring the conversation and work with everybody at the same time. Or if there is there is a leader, there is a person leading the meetings, you may have a conversation with that person. But the idea that you will effectively work with all of them. Now, the second question, how many teams do you work with and dealing with conflict? You need to build skills to be able to do this work. This is not like because you're an individual coach, you can do team coaching. You really need to build skills in facilitation. You need to build skills in managing conflict, feel comfortable with conflict, and key element, Wendy, supervision. I need supervision with individual clients and more with teams. Why? Because of the complexity. So when you work with the supervisor helps you to look at what you may not be seen as a team coach working with a team. And with the supervisor, based on the teams and the nature of the teams, you may decide in that space how many teams can you work with. And in your case, Wendy, you can do a mix. You can work some teams, some individuals, some teaching, like you have a mix of activities. Now, ICF makes supervision mandatory for team coaches. So if you want to get the credential with ICF as a team coach, you need you need working with 10 teams. So this is what they came up with. It's not amount of hours, but it's amount of team that you can work with. So you need to work with at least 10 teams before you can apply for an accreditation. And you need 10 hours of team coaching supervision to be able to apply for an accreditation. So supervision is mandatory now for this new accreditation. So you want to keep that in mind as a possibility. And here we have Aida, who's a supervisor. I don't know, we have another supervisor, say, Danny, to your supervisor. And this is something for you to pay attention to because coaches are going to start requesting team coaching supervision to apply for the accreditations. And I developed the program. The program is around ICF core competencies. So there are 8 sessions. One session is each of the competencies. Like several of you graduated from my coaching programs. In team coaching, we do the same. We go, like I spend 1 minute with each competency. We spend the whole 2 hours with each of the competencies. And we also provide supervision because everybody has to work with a team. We also provide supervision as part of the team coaching experience. And we were talking with Aida, who has a lot of experience in team coaching, to do that with the program in Spanish we are doing. But we do believe that supervision is key to explore all of these complexities. Leslie? You're still on mute? Okay, here we go.
Sorry. I said thank you. It's so good to see you and to see everybody. So I do a lot of facilitation, or what I call facilitation. And I remember in the coaching, you were talking about how if you're working harder than your coachee, then you're doing something wrong. But I find in facilitation, I do a lot of, like scribing and integrating and asking. It's very interactive, but I'm wondering if you can comment on, in the different activities, what the balance of involvement is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, this is a great reminder. In leadership coaching, individual coaching, the coach shouldn't be working harder than the client. We all agree about that. In team coaching, it's the same. You shouldn't be working harder than the client, but you definitely are going to work harder than if you're working with an individual client. Because you have to deal with many elements at the same time. So there is higher level of complexity. Now, what is interesting, Leslie, and what I love about ICF philosophy is that it's always about paneling and co-creating. So you can look for ways to co-create with a team. So you don't need to do all of that. You can have volunteers. Okay, who would like to support? Who would like to take notes? Who would like to do this? So you can split some of the tasks if you're going to be facilitating a conversation. And you can even, what I love is, like, you can ask the team, how do you want to do this? You don't need to come up with all of the answers. It's about co-creating. So you maybe say in language, to co-create this, how do you want to proceed? So you bring it to language and you collaborate and now, what is tricky is that not all teams are ready for team coaching. So like Wendy, you are talking about conflict. If people you are working with, we're going to help a team to be more effective, but you do an assessment and you realize that there is a lot of conflict. First, you need to deal with all of that. First, you need to bring people together. You need to ask questions to support the team to come up with what's going on. And people at a different level of maturity. So the team can be more or less mature in terms of how effective it is, but then you have the individual members. And sometimes the individual members of a team are ready and willing and they want to do the work, but sometimes people are not there. So that makes difficult challenges for the team to be more successful and for you too. And sometimes people are in the wrong place. Some people shouldn't be there. And the leaders know that they should have let people go, but they don't do it. How many of you know leaders that they need to let people go and they don't do it? For different reasons. Sometimes they're appropriate reasons, sometimes they are not. So as a result of that, teams suffer for that. And the other key element is leadership. Leaders, when leaders are effective, it's much more, for us as team coaches, makes our job easier than when the team leaders need a lot of coaching themselves to start with. And sometimes, do you know what? Sometimes it's not the team that needs the coaching. The leader is the one who needs the coaching. So it's all about assessing and looking at all of the different elements and understanding, okay, what is the right intervention. That's the reason why it's good to work with another team coach. That's the reason why it's good to have supervision, because of the complexity of the work. Very complex and interesting and rewarding too. Have all of these elements. So we have 5 minutes to finish. So let me tell you in short 5 minutes. We can stay if people want to stay longer, but I know some people may need to leave in 5 minutes. So I will stay if you will have more questions. But briefly before you go, I want to share briefly about the program we're starting next week. It's a team coaching certification. We follow ICF core competency model. We have 8 sessions. Each session is one of the competencies. The sessions last 4 hours. And in the 4 hours, we have 2 hours. It's a webinar where we do like we did at the beginning today, where we work in small groups. And then we discuss and we do exercises and activities, and we cover the content of the 8 competencies. We also work with David Kletterberg, book, Coaching the Team at Work. So this is our resource. So eventually people here may not want to get certified as team coaches. I highly recommend you get the book and read the book. So Team Coaching at Work from David Kletterberg is one of my favorite books. There are several now in the market. There are around, 10 books on team coaching. But I think that this is, personally, I believe that this is the one that I like the most. I have been working with a team that they have let me record the session, so you can see a team coach work in process. You don't have that in other programs, so that's a thing. In one way, this program is unique, that you see a team coach working with a team in a process, where you see me contracting, facilitating, doing all of the steps, and then you discuss that in small groups. What do you see? What's happening? And then what we do is you see one session, and then you need to recommend what would you do as a team coach for the next session. What will be the thing that you will be paying attention? And then after you have that work, then you will get to see the next recording. So you don't get all of the recordings together. You get one recording, then you need to do some work, imagining that you are the team coach. What would you be thinking? What you'll be doing? And then you see what happened next. So it's a process. Then you have an experience as a team member. So we split the class in teams, and you work with a facilitator, who is a graduate from the program, and the team needs to come up with a result, with a product. And the product is a piece of research on team coaching. So you all work in doing research on team coaching, coming up with an element that you're interested around team coaching. Like, for example, one of the teams in the last couple was about vulnerability. In team coaching, and how you facilitate that as a team coach. And then in that team coach, you rotate the role of team coach between the participants. So you have an experience and opportunity to practice team coaching with your colleagues before you go and start practicing team coaching with a real team. Like we do in coaching, we work in triads and we practice and coach each other and get feedback in triads. Here, what we do it is with a team that you're going to be putting together, you're going to be splitting, and you're going to work every time we get together. You work with that team, and you rotate the role of team coach. So you have an opportunity to practice team coaching before you practice with a real team. And then you need to work with a real team. And you get, during the program, group supervision. So people bring their cases, their team work that they're doing to group supervision, so everybody learns from everybody. And you also receive individual supervision on team coaching, where you come up one-on-one with supervisors, specific issues that you're having in the program. So this is pretty interactive, pretty dynamic, and we're starting next week. We meet every other week for 4 months, 8 sessions. And this is a little bit about the program. Anybody have any questions about the program before we go back to questions about team coaching? The price of the program is $3,400. You can pay it in several payments. And sometimes if you have economical issues and you need a discount, let me know, because sometimes we provide some support to participants when needed, since we have a global reach here, as you can see. And so if the economical issue is a problem, your challenge, let me know, and we can see how we can support you with that. And we have people already sign up for the program starting next week that are already team coaches, that they want to get their hours and the accreditation with ICF. So several of the participants are already experienced team coaches. So, but it's interesting. So you can also learn from your colleagues in the class. So this is a little bit about the program. So let's say we are at the top of the hour. So now it's all about your questions. If you need to go, you can go. If you want to stay, I'm going to stay and answer any questions you may have about the program or about team coaching.
Damian,
yes.
Can we get the program or where do we look it up? So to read it, to go through it, just to get a little bit more.
I am going to put it here now in the chat. So you can download it with the program with all of the details.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that right now, so everybody has that handy. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much.
Lorenzo.
Hey, so a lot of what was discussed today was, I heard many references to clients as in companies that a consultant works for, right? And so I wanted to hear from you, what do you think about, practicing team coaching in a company that you're part of? And what do you see as the pros and cons in applying team coaching practices to either your own team or a team in your organization, right? Because, challenges like, getting people's trust might be very different if they know you already. And I also understand that there might be challenges on the other hand, but what are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. It's like leaders who are coaching their people at work. They don't need to be professional coaches to be able to coach their staff and their team members. The same thing in team coaching. As a leader, ideally, we want all leaders to have team coaching skills. So when they're working with their teams, they can support them to identify what are the strengths and areas for development and work together to work on that. So if you are a leader and you're using team coaching skills with your team, I do believe that is great. You are not being here like a professional team coach coming from outside to support the team. So sometimes it's necessary and sometimes it's not. It's the same thing with executive coaching. Sometimes the work that the executive coach is doing with the client, with the leader, is something that maybe the leader should be doing with the executive we are working with, their own boss. It's like sometimes in organizations, the leaders are referring their work to the executive coaches. So here is the same thing. I believe that, Lorenzo, you can be effective using the team coaching skill with your own team. Now, if you're working with another team in the organization, it's tricky because of issues of confidentiality. So if you are going to work with a different team and you're coming with a hat of a team coach, you can still do it, but you may find in the background some noise because people may be wondering about confidentiality, about how you will use information, if they really can trust you. So that may be in the background. So it will depend on the nature of the organization, the team, and the details. But you may even say that. You may even come to the team. If somebody comes to you and says, okay, we would like you to coach this team, you may say, I am willing to work with you. I just want to be aware that that may be in the background. You may be wondering, I am going to keep things confidential, how that can be an issue. So I want to be sure that we talk about that openly before you make a commitment. Any other questions before we go? You have a question, Nicolas, or you need to go?
No, I just wanted to say goodbye and thank you very much.
Great seeing you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good to see you too. Bye-bye.
Any last questions before we go? No? Well, you can send me a note. Paola, let's hear your question and then we will go. And then if you have any question, please feel free to reach out to me. Paola.
Thank you, Damian. Thank you for everything. And very quick question. Can be delivered virtually, team coaching, or should be done in person with the team present in the room?
The idea is that you can do both. You can ideally you want to do it in person, but sometimes it's not possible. So sometimes you will have to do it virtually. You will see me working in the recording that I have put together. It's all virtual. So you will see how you can work as a team coach virtually. Definitely, you can do that. Yes. And there are advantages. When you're in person, you can see things you cannot see when you are virtually. Yeah.
Another question, Damian. You mentioned that the team coaching, you need to have a co-coach, right? That one is ideally. So then ideally the co-coach also need to be trained as a team coach.
Definitely.